Script? Hello everyone. A warm welcome to day 3 of the 10th edition of Pune International Literary Festival 2022. We now begin on a very happy note with an interesting conversation, Hollywood to the Himalayas. Sadhviji Saraswati is an American-born PhD who moved to India in 1996. A graduate of Stanford University, she was ordained by Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati, president of one of the largest interfaith institutions in India, into the tradition of sannyas and lives at the Padmartha Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, where she leads a variety of humanitarian projects, teaches meditation, and gives spiritual discourses and counsels to individuals and families. Alifiya Khan, with around 15 years of experience under her belt, Alifiya Khan is a journalist currently working at the Indian Express. Having had reported over a variety of topics ranging from health to politics and business, Alifiya is a firm believer in the art of storytelling and its power in changing the world. I request Alifiya Khan to begin this exciting conversation, which we are all eagerly waiting to hear. Over to you, Alifiya.
Thank you, Manjari. Once again, I welcome all of you who are watching this live conversation between me and Sadhviji to this telecast. Namaste, Sadhviji. Good morning. Thank you for being with me here today.
It's wonderful to join you. I'm so glad to be together.
Thank you. So Sadhviji, needs no introduction. She has millions of people who follow her across the world. Many who have had life-changing experiences thanks to her. But like Manjari said, she has been in India for more than 2 decades now. And this book that we are going to discuss today is about her journey from where she was born in California, Hollywood, to India, aptly titled Hollywood to the Himalayas. So before losing any more time, I'll delve straight into the question. Sadhviji, first, could you tell us about this very interesting journey that you've had? What brought you to India and what made you stay here?
It's so beautiful to be together. The journey has been truly a journey of grace. It's quite literally a physical journey from Hollywood to the Himalayas, as the title of my book is. I was raised in a family with great privilege, great opportunity in Los Angeles, quite literally in Hollywood. And I had really a life that, if you were looking from the outside in, you would have said, this girl has everything. And I was given so much. I mean, it's been such a blessing, all of the opportunity on every level. I had really the best education that money can buy. I graduated from Stanford University. I was in the midst of doing my PhD in pediatric neuropsychology. And I lived in a world of abundance, a world of plenty, a world that, people think, if I just could have that, then I would be happy. And the issue, though, is that, of course, money doesn't buy happiness. Titles don't bring happiness. Degrees don't bring happiness. Social status doesn't bring happiness. Possessions and opportunity and privilege don't bring happiness. But we all were living in that world, telling us over and over again that here's your happiness equation. You need a good education, get the right degree, get the right type of job, live in the right area of town, vacation at the right resorts, wear the right clothes, look the right way in the right clothes. You know, this is the real myth of happiness that's being propagated all over the world, primarily in Western societies, but now it's been tragically adopted by and believed by so many in more Eastern traditions, even like India. But I had all of that, and I was 25 when I came to India in the middle of my PhD degree. And I was not on a spiritual quest. I would love to say that I was. Matlab, looking in retrospect, it would be really nice to say, I could see the shallowness of that world, and I prayed to God to send me a guru to bring me into spirituality. But it's not true. I was 25 and I was an academic. I was a scientist. I was a very social person. I was someone who really had all of the things that I thought I needed in order to be happy. But in the midst of all of that, as a thread through all of the having it all, was also a thread of depression and anxiety within myself. And this is something that is epidemic around the world. And even though this was 30, 35 years ago, it was pretty epidemic at that time too. It's getting a lot worse these days, but I was struggling with a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of feelings of unworthiness. There was a sense that I had that I, at the time, thought I was the only one who had, but in retrospect have realized that so many suffer from this. The experience that I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not popular enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not deserving enough. All of these things that we really struggle very deeply with. And in my early childhood, I had also experienced some very, very severe challenges and trauma even that I had carried with me into my adolescence and my early 20s. And that, of course, led to a lot of the emotional, mental health issues that I was struggling with. But it never occurred to me, no one ever told me at any point that, hey, spirituality would be a great antidote to this. Spirituality has the key. No one ever said it. It never occurred to me. It wasn't part of the framework that I lived in. It was all about therapy and psychology and treatment and time and whatnot. So I come to India at the age of 25 on a semester off from my PhD program. And again, in retrospect, I would love to say, oh yeah, I knew all about India and I dreamed of coming to India. But that also isn't true. I didn't know anything about India, except for the fact that I loved the food. I was a very strict vegetarian and had been since my childhood. I wasn't raised a vegetarian, but I had become one on my own as a young child. And traveling around Europe, which I did a lot of, traveling across the United States, which I also had done a lot of, and even being in South America, where I had gone, it's very difficult, and especially 30 years ago, 35 years ago, to be a really pakka vegetarian in places that are not used to it. Inevitably, they're putting eggs in something, or fish in something, or chicken broth in your vegetable soup, or they're cooking their rice in chicken broth. I mean, all sorts of things. So when India was suggested as the place to come, the only thing in my mind was, well, kam se kam main बढ़िया से आराम से खाना खा पाऊंगी. Like, I knew at least I'll be able to eat happily. And so I agreed to go to India just because I thought, well, at least traveling will be easier because I will be able to eat happily. Fast forward, and Rishikesh is the very first place we come. Now, this was 1996. There was no Google at that time. And so we had a big, thick, Lonely Planet guidebook. And I opened it sitting in a coffee shop in Connaught Place on the first morning that we were in Delhi. And I opened it and I said, Rishikesh, just like that. Just opened the book, Rishikesh. And we come to Rishikesh, and I go down to the banks of Ganga. We were staying in a hotel, of course, and I go down to the banks of Ganga after we arrive just to put my feet in the river. I didn't know anything about Ganga. I didn't know anything about the Himalayas. I didn't know even that the river was sacred. I just knew it's a river. I'm hot. I'm tired. I'm sweaty. We've been traveling. And then we had to cross this bridge. So, mujhe laga, I'll just freshen up a little. Put my feet in the river and freshen up. I stood on the banks of Mother Ganga, and suddenly I had this extraordinary experience of being in the presence of the divine. And as I mentioned, I was not a spiritual person. I was raised in a Jewish family, and it was never something that had been a deep spiritual path for me on any level. It was more something we did for my grandparents. We went to synagogue to make my grandparents happy. But I also was never searching or seeking spirituality on any kind of conscious level. So I had never noticed the absence of the divine in my life. But then suddenly there on the banks of Ganga, I'm sobbing. The tears are just pouring down my face. I was knocked to the ground. And suddenly I had this experience of just being in the presence of the divine. And it was so extraordinary because the divine was everywhere, all around me. Whatever I saw, it began with Mother Ganga, of course. But then as I turned my head, whatever I looked at, I could see and feel and know that divine presence. And even more powerfully, I could feel it in myself. And so all of that sense that I had had of being not good enough, of there being something wrong with me, of being undeserving, being unworthy, suddenly I had this experience of the divine in me, of myself as not separate from the divine universe. And all I could do was cry. It was so beautiful. I was rendered pretty much non-verbal. I couldn't even explain it. All I could say was, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. And fast forwarding again, it's obviously a long and beautiful story, all of which is there in Hollywood to the Himalayas. But for now, fast forward until about a week later when I finally met His Holiness Pujaswami Chidananda Saraswati Ji, the president of Parmarth Niketan Ashram, where a few days earlier I had heard a voice telling me that I needed to stay there. another story. I won't go into the whole story, but just suffice it to say that you imagine when an academic scientist, a 25-year-old, non-yogi, non-mystic, non-spiritual person, suddenly is hearing voices saying, you must stay here. So the experience of being pulled and led and drawn by the divine on this path was so strong. People say, oh, you chose this. And I always say, God, I wish I could take credit, but it actually all has been just grace that has shown me the path. And then I finally have Puja Swamiji's darshan. And he tells me, welcome home. And I knew that this was home, and I knew that I was meant to be here. And then as I'm walking out from meeting him, my feet literally get glued to the ground of the ashram. I literally could not walk out. It was like the ground of the ashram reached up and grabbed my feet and wouldn't let go. It's another beautiful, slightly long story. I'll leave it for you to read the whole story in the book. But that was when I knew that I really was meant to stay now. Because originally I had been thinking, chalo thoda sa ghum lete hain, we'll travel, we'll go to the mountains, stay when I come back. But when the ground literally reached up and grabbed me, and I could not move, that's when I knew, okay, so this is the divine's way of saying you are meant to stay now. And that was 26 years ago. It was September of 1996. And I did eventually finish my PhD, but that's another story. And I've been here now for the last 26 years. And it's been the most extraordinary blessing of healing, of transformation, of letting go of all of that was holding me back and keeping me stuck and making me a prisoner in my own mind, of my own thoughts, of my own patterns, and really learning how to forgive, how to let go, and then how to be free. I remember when Puja Swamiji told me, he said, we talk about moksha, liberation, freedom. He said, it's not after you die. He said, the body is not the problem. It's not your knee or your elbow or your belly button that's keeping you from moksha. It's your mind. It's your thoughts. And so you need to let go of those thoughts that are holding you prisoner, those patterns of thinking that are keeping you stuck, so that you can be free. And it's been such an amazing, amazing blessing. And I've seen it work not only for me, but I've now seen it work for so many people who I've been so blessed to be able to share this with.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. Um, though your entire book is extremely inspirational, but there is a particular chapter that is very intriguing. It's your first satsang on anger and forgiveness. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So that happened about maybe 10 years after I'd been here. So quickly filling in those blanks, because you've skipped to a chapter well into the book, which is beautiful. It's one of my favorite chapters as well. So during the first 10, 12 years, I was very blessed with so many seva opportunities. so many opportunities to be of service for children, for women, for the sick. We run so many free schools and women's vocational training programs and free medical care programs and disaster relief programs and environmental protection programs with tree plantations and water protection and so much. And I loved the Seva. Seva's, for me, that energy, that prana, that life force that flows through. And every day here at Parmarth Niketan, one of the big highlights is the evening Ganga Arati. People come from all over the world for this. You've probably seen it on TV or social media. It's a very, very beautiful event that my guru Puja Swamiji leads every night. And in the evenings after the Arti, we used to gather in his garden for a darshan. You know, people would come and they would just bow and take his blessings, and that still happens, of course. They come and they have darshan and they take his blessings. But at that time, it would also lead into satsang. Now, satsang takes place separately, which you'll hear how that happened. So I would sit there next to where Puja Swamiji sits, and he would bless people, and maybe they wanted to talk about some humanitarian project, some idea they had, or something that they wanted his blessings for. And then every once in a while, people would ask spiritual questions about their life, and he would give them answers. So one evening, I'd been here maybe 10 years, maybe 12 years. So this goes back, this was maybe 2005, 6, something like that. So maybe it was a little less than 10 years, must have been about 2005, 2006. And we're sitting there and he gets asked a question. There's a large group of people. And he says, Sadhviji. And I thought it was Sadhviji, comma. Like I was waiting for the rest of the sentence. I thought he was going to say, Sadhviji, could you go and get them all a copy of my book in which I talk about this? Or Sadhviji, could you go and, you know, give this message to so-and-so? Or Sadhviji, could you do something? I was just expecting him to give some kind of instruction. And so I'm waiting, and he doesn't speak. And I turn to look at him, and he's sitting like this, eyes closed, he's meditating. And I realized that what he was saying was Sadhviji, full stop, Sadhviji, period, not Sadhviji, comma. And that I was the one who was supposed to answer the question. Now, I had already been doing a lot of public speaking, but that were situations where I was able to think in advance. I was able to kind of prepare in advance. I knew what the topic was. I knew that I would have to go and give a lecture on such and such a topic. So I could think in advance. This was suddenly, these people had asked this question, and now he's telling me to give the answer. So I close my eyes and I try to figure out in my mind what the best answer would be. Like I was writing an article or like I was writing something for him. The problem was having 50 people stare at you is so stress-producing if you've never done something like that before, that suddenly my brain wasn't working. And I'm trying to think of what to say, and I can't. And it's not coming. And I start to panic. And of course, when you panic, the more stressed you get, the less you're able to think. So now I'm thoroughly panicked because now man mein kuch bhi nahi aa rahe hai, nothing, what am I going to say? And I look over at him again thinking, naturally Guruji mere ko bachayenge, he's going to, open his eyes and start speaking. But he didn't. He's still sitting in his meditation. And so I close my eyes again, and in my mind, I bow down to him, and I say, I'm so sorry. I've let you down. I've disappointed you. You gave me this task, but I'm not up to it. Mere mein hai nahi. And just, this is all taking place in my mind with my eyes closed, and I'm bowing down to him fully in my humility and awareness that I don't have it in me. And I then open my eyes to look at this whole group of people sitting there, fully prepared to just sit in my shame of, I don't have the answer. I cannot do this. And as I sit and I open my eyes and I gently open my mouth, just my lips sort of open, and suddenly, out of my mouth, the words start coming. And I'm speaking. But I'm not thinking about it. I'm just speaking. And I'm looking around, and people have tears in their eyes. Tears are pouring down people's face. And I keep speaking, but I'm not thinking in my brain. My brain is completely quiet. And later on that evening, several people in the ashram came up to me and said, God, I heard you gave a beautiful satsang tonight. What did you talk about? What did you say? And I couldn't actually remember because it wasn't the conscious mind. It wasn't the thinking mind. It wasn't the planning mind, the academic mind that had spoken. What had happened, even without me realizing that it was happening, was in the moment of bowing down in my mind to my guru, in the moment of realizing ki mujh mein nahi hai, it's not in me, I had actually created the space in which grace could flow. I had gotten out of the way. What blocks most of us is the ego. And in that moment, I had literally gotten out of the way of my ego. And in that space, wisdom flowed. Divine grace flowed. Not from me, but through me. And that was the beginning of me giving satsang. And yeah, it's been almost 20 years now. And it's been such a blessing because up to now, almost 20 years later, it's the same experience. It's not about, oh, I know the answers. Oh, I'm going to sit there and give my wisdom to people. It's, I sit there and I bow to the divine, fully aware ki mujh mein nahi hai. And I get out of the way. And that which needs to be spoken, that wisdom of the divine universe, it flows through me. And so now each evening after the sacred arti, I have the beautiful blessing of leading the satsang, and people come from all over the world and they share the questions of their mind and their hearts. And I have the beautiful blessing of being an instrument through which those answers flow. But that teaching of it's not in me, is so powerful no matter what it is that you're trying to or hoping to achieve in your life. You know, yesterday was Gita Jayanti, the anniversary of the day that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Bhagavan Krishna to Arjuna, or to us through Arjuna. And one of the core teachings is this concept of nimitta matram, means be an instrument. We are instruments in God's hands. And how can we humbly, with devotion, offer ourselves as instruments in the hands of the divine, whether it's, in my case, giving satsang, being a vehicle for, a channel for that wisdom, whether it's any one of thousands of other ways that people serve, that people bring light to the world. It's all about allowing ourselves to be used by the divine. And so if you can realize that it's not about making it happen. It's not about I have to do it all. It's about I have to realize कि मुझ में नहीं है. But it's all in God, in the infinite divine. And that God uses us as tools, as instruments, as vehicles for grace on earth. And that's the highest thing that we can really aspire to. That's the greatest success. The greatest achievement is when we really are those vehicles for grace.
In a post-COVID era today, where mental health has become extremely important, everybody is looking at ways of, because we have been under so many stressors over the last couple of years. Organizations today are heavily investing in, getting the mental health right for their employees. We have seen that there is an exponential rise in the number of applications, websites, services that are catering to meditation, mindfulness. For years together now, you have been teaching meditation techniques to people. It's a spiritual technique. It's used, applied in various religious traditions. Even the Western world is now looking at it. If at all, if it's possible for you to tell us, in short, what is the essence of it, and how can one use this, especially in the era that we are in today, the times that we are in today. How can this be effectively channelized?
Beautiful, beautiful question. Meditation shows us the truth of who we are. The suffering that we endure is because of ignorance. So in short, the core of who we all are is divinity. We've been created not just by the Creator, but of the Creator. But we identify not as the pure soul, not as spirit, not as divinity, but we identify as the body. We identify as our size, our shape, our color, our race, our religion, our bank account, our career, and therefore we suffer. We suffer jealousy. Why does this one have so much? I don't. God, I wish I were that beautiful. I wish I were that smart. I wish I were that handsome or popular. Why not me? We suffer anger when our ego's attachments and expectations are thwarted by someone else or something else. When jo mein chahti hoon, jis tarah se mein chahti hoon, agar nahi hota, we get angry. So we suffer anger, we suffer jealousy, we suffer competition, us versus them. Your loss is my gain, your gain is my loss. It separates us. We suffer greed, we suffer lust. All of these come out of ignorance. They come out of this false idea that I am my body. Why does this one have, 1 million followers on Facebook and I've only got 100? It's not fair, right? These sorts of issues that we face, or in our family, why is it I have to do everything? She doesn't do anything. It's not fair. All of these types of conflicts come out of this false identification that I am my body, I am my role, I am my situation in society, I am my relationships, and so we suffer. Meditation is that which removes the falsehood. It removes the ignorance of what we are not, and it shows us the truth of who we are, which is that divine. And it doesn't matter what your religion is. Doesn't matter even if you don't have a religion. You don't have to believe in God in any way for meditation to work. You just have to believe in your own capital S self, in an expanded, higher, truer, deeper, unchanging aspect of yourself that isn't going up and down like the waves of the ocean, but that's the depth, that which isn't changing, because my body keeps changing. My role in society keeps changing. My relationships keep changing. My bank account keeps changing. My thoughts keep changing. My emotions keep changing. What is it that's stable? What is it that's not changing? Who is there in between my thoughts? Meditation shows us that. And when you can really experience that truth of the self, we stop suffering. And so this is why, as you said, all over the world, even in non-religious places like hospitals in America, they're teaching meditation because it works. If I can break free from identifying as the one who is angry, the one who was abused, the one who was abandoned, the one who was betrayed, the one who always gets the short end of the stick. If I can break free from that identification, then I can heal. And this is actually, for me, what's been such a beautiful blessing about sharing Hollywood to the Himalayas with everyone, because there's two arcs. The first arc is the physical arc, which is my actual journey. Physical journey from Hollywood to the Himalayas via Stanford and Palo Alto. That's my physical journey. But the lessons that I've learned, the transformation that I've experienced, the healing that I've experienced, well, that doesn't require you to travel from Hollywood to the Himalayas. Doesn't require you to travel anywhere. All it requires is a shift in the mindset, because Hollywood to the Himalayas is a mindset shift. Plenty of people get on a plane from Los Angeles and come to India and don't have that shift. It's not enough to just carry your body across the world. It's actually about the mind. And that's available for everyone. So the Hollywood way of thinking says you are your body, its size, its shape, its color, its history, its story, its popularity, and therefore we suffer. The Himalayan way of thinking says you have a body, but you're not the body. You are the soul. You are spirit. You are divinity. You are consciousness. You are love. You are truth. You are one with the universe. And when we can make that mindset shift, and we are able then to let go of the anger, of the grudges, of the pain, of the story, of the history, of the drama, of the expectations that are all part of this body, mind, ego complex, this Hollywood way of thinking, and shift into the awareness of ourselves as infinite soul, ever expanding infinite love and truth and consciousness and divinity. Well, then we heal wherever you may be in the world. And so that for me has been such a blessing to be able to share that mindset shift with people, because that's something that everyone, wherever they are, can use and benefit from and find their own healing and their own transformation.
You know, you just mentioned about a shift in mindset, and sometime back you said I skipped several chapters. There was actually a question that I wanted to ask you, but somehow this should have been at the beginning of the conversation, but it's still interesting. I wanted to know that you've spoken about your journey extensively from your own perspective, but when you came here to India, you were not born in Indian, a Jewish born, a Jewish woman who was born and raised in California. You've come to India. It's a new culture. It's a new language. How did the acceptance for you come through? I'm sure that initially there would have been challenges. So from being somebody who's experiencing the culture to getting the title of Sadhviji, what were the, as a woman and as a foreigner, how difficult was it to get assimilated into this system, because it's a very traditional stoic system?
So, yes, obviously there were a lot of challenges. There are always challenges in life. But for me, really, this has felt like home from the beginning. So there were challenges on what you could call superficial levels, and then there were challenges on deeper levels. The superficial level challenges were mostly things around properly tying a sari and things like that. I remember in the beginning, I always wore saris and didn't tie them very well. I tried, but it wasn't something that came very easily. And I remember as I would walk through the ashram or the market, these random women, strangers, would come up and they would stick their hands in my sari, like in here, in down there, and they would actually fix it. And in the beginning, I was shocked because in the West, we have really clear senses of social space and boundaries that don't exist quite so much in India. And I remember thinking, my God, I've been violated. Like that woman just stuck her hand in my clothes. But I realized very quickly that actually that woman did for me the same thing that she would have done for her own daughter. If her own daughter was walking out of the house in a very poorly tied sari, and that, yes, I could think about it as being violated, but that would lead to suffering. Instead, if I could realize I had been adopted, then instead of suffering, I would find joy. And so it was an opportunity for me to learn how to make another mindset shift. It's all about the mindset. How to shift from feeling violated to feeling adopted. So I share a lot of these sorts of stories for people to realize how much their own mindset and mindset shift holds the key. On a deeper level, being a woman, not easy. It's a man's world. The world of religion all over the world, but especially in India, it's still very much a man's world. And it's been a beautiful blessing, an incredible blessing to be accepted in the way that I have been, to be blessed the way I have been. But there have been moments of great challenge, and I share one of them in the book, of actually being, as a sannyasi, kicked off of a stage, a huge stage, hundreds of leaders in the Kumbh Mela, a stage I had been actually walked up onto and made to sit down, and then was told that I actually had to leave the stage because it was only a Mahatma stage. Now, Mahatma, of course, means great soul. It doesn't mean male body. But in our culture, it's used to mean revered men. And being told that, given the fact that I had a woman's body, I wasn't a Mahatma, and therefore needed to leave the stage. And they were very polite about it. They said, oh, we've put this nice chair with the asan and all of that for you right in the front. But I didn't go sit in it. I went and I sat on the banks of the Sangam. This was in the Kumbh Mela. And I meditated until I could find, and this is that mindset shift I'm talking about, because it's very easy to go either or. Either they are right, meaning my female body is wrong, or I am right, meaning they are wrong. That's how most of us tend to go. Either I'm right and they're wrong, or they're right and I'm wrong. But I knew it wasn't either. I knew that I wanted to be able to keep loving and adoring and revering the very saints whose stage it was that I had been removed from. The very culture, the very parampara, the very tradition that led them to believe that that's an okay thing to do. I didn't want to think of it as wrong, because I revere it, I adore it, I love it. But I also adore and love my female body. And I don't want to be a man. I don't have any sense of, oh, main aadmi hote to kitna acha rehta. I don't think like that at all. And so what I needed to do was meditate very deeply until I could experience enough spaciousness in my own self, in my own mind, in my own awareness, in which it wasn't either or, but it was both, in which I could love and adore and revere and bow down to the saints who had kicked me off their stage, the parampara, the dharma that they are rooted in, and also could love and adore and revere the very female body due to which I had been removed. And I sat at that Sangam for such a long time meditating until I could create and experience that spaciousness where both could coexist.
Religious leaders also do have a very important, role in in society. Besides their spiritual lives, they do hold a position of power as well. And you have been one of those who have used this position very responsibly, because there have been some issues that you have consistently spoken about. One is women empowerment through Divine Shakti Foundation. I wish to come to that. There's another as well, which is your membership at the United Nations, where you are a part of the Advisory Council on Religion. And there was a very recent conference where I was going through the video where you said, and I quote, "Religion at its core is meant to connect us, but the energy of connection has become an energy of disconnection, divisiveness, and polarization. Polarization increases during times of stress. The lines between us and them become thick and thicker. These are your words. I just quoted them from your speech there that I was going through. And I think in times today where there is an increasing sense of isolation amongst the minorities, there is a lot of talk that is going on about polarization. And you being somebody who's revered, hold a very important position as far as the majority. How do you see this? And how do you see a solution come out of this entire situation?
So, India at its core is a country of openness, of togetherness, of oneness. It's a country rooted in the tradition and the culture and the mindset of Vasudev Kutumbakam. The world is a family. It's the country that has opened its arms and welcomed not only its own minority traditions that have been here for such a long time, but minority communities coming in from outside, minority communities coming from other places, whether it's the Farsis, whether it's the Jews, but bringing in minorities and providing them with not only a safe place, but an integrated place, a respectful place, a new place for them to really make their homes. So that's the nature of India, has always been to accept. Sadly, what happens, and this isn't true only in India, this is tragically being true more and more all over the world, is that religion gets co-opted. It gets co-opted for things that have nothing to do with religion. So, for example, if you look globally at the major conflicts over religion, so many of them, almost all of them, are not actually about religion at all, but they're about land, they're about power, they're about resources, they're about money. And we use religion in order to get people to fight. Let's say, for example, that I am a political leader over an area of land that I want to be only for me, but people of some other religion are occupying a part of it. Well, it's going to be very difficult for me to convince people to go out and give up their lives just so that I can be king of a larger area of land or have access to more resources. So instead, what I tell my people is, you see those people, they are, working against God. They are the ones who are against God. They are the ones who are evil. They are the ones who God has told us to wipe out. And if we wipe them out, we are doing it in God's name. We're doing it for God. God wants this. God will bless us. So if I'm a powerful, charismatic leader, then I become able to get lots and lots of people ready to give their lives in their mind for God, when actually what it's for is simply so that I can have a larger chunk of land to be king over. So that's traditionally and tragically how the vast majority of what we would call religious battles or religious wars have actually been about, is nobody really cares that deeply how you pray to God, what name you use, what language you use. What they care is, we want that land, we want those resources, we want this power. And so I think what's really most important here in India is for people to identify first and foremost as people of the land of India. whatever our religion may be, whatever our color may be, whatever our caste may be, whatever any dividing factors may be, first and foremost, we are Indians. Even deeper than that, first and foremost, we are human beings. And as human beings, we have a responsibility to the planet to live in integrity, in nonviolence, in compassion, in care, in truthfulness. Those are our responsibilities as humans in a global humanity. Then above that, we are Indians. What's our responsibility as Indians to the country of India? And only then do we start identifying based on different colors or different religions or different castes or different races or ways of being. But what's happened is that in too many places, we have started to identify exclusively based on how we worship God. We have forgotten that we are all Indians. We have forgotten that we are all humans. And so we need to go back to that which unites us. Yes, there will always be differences. In one family, there's differences. 5 kids, so many differences. But are we going to live rooted in our differences? Kill each other over our differences? Or are we going to remember, ultimately, we are 5 brothers and sisters living under one roof, of one mother and one father. And it's up to us how peaceful and therefore how prosperous this family becomes. And whether you're looking at one actual mother, father, 5 kids family, or you're looking at a family of us in India, or you're looking at a family of us as God's children on earth, either way, it's the same thing. If we choose to kill each other, fight each other, burn each other down, well, it's our own home we're doing this to. We're literally shooting ourselves in the foot. And you mentioned COVID. COVID showed us very clearly we can only be healthy when we are all healthy. We can only be safe when we are a way of living in harmony, in security, in health, in safety with everyone together. Otherwise, we're stuck living just in our own 4 walls and not able to go out. So this is what we need to bring to our nation.
Thank you, Sadhviji. And these are very apt words, especially for the times that we live in. Thank you for this very enlightening conversation. Unfortunately, we are at the end of time, though I hope that we get an opportunity to continue this conversation forward. For everyone who was a part of this session, thank you for joining in. Sadhviji's book is available for all to read, and I'm sure that there are a lot of lessons for us there. Hollywood to the Himalayas.
We have witnessed a life-changing conversation today. Best of luck to all your future endeavors, Alifiya, and to the cool, calm, and serene Sadhvi Bhagwati Saraswati ji. And thank you for being our PILF guests